Hey, Daddy, this is the man of the champions, Bill Fonzie Alfonso, giving a shout out to
Something else.
something else, Daddy.
This is Nicole Matara, Great Warrior Wolf, and you are listening to Something Else.
I'm Tony Cini, and you're listening to Something Else.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Palladino, the voice of New England, and you are listening to Something Else with Arya.
And welcome to episode number 127 of Something Else with Arya, and it's Wednesday, so I'm joined, of course, by the one, the only, it's Cyndi. Cyndi, it feels like it's been, weeks and weeks, or even minutes and minutes since we last talked about some TNA.
Yeah, it's one of the two.
Yeah, I know. It's like, man, time flies when you're having fun, I guess,
Well, fun might be a stretch, but it's enjoyable sometimes.
I mean, how could you not have fun talking about NWA Total Nonstop Action from September 25th, 2002 at the TNA Asylum in Nashville, Tennessee. Now, of course, we're officially we officially have less than 2 years left of this project.
Hooray!
Come this time in 2026, I don't know, because the shows do, I think they get better. Because, Russo gets the boot next year when Hogan teases coming in. So, in theory, shit's going to get better. But actually, who the hell's the booker? Who the hell's the writer after Russo leaves? I don't think Scott D'Amore's in yet.
Nope.
And Dusty's not in yet. So, who knows?
It might be Bill Banks.
It might be Dutch. I guess we'll see. But so like we do every week, before we dive too far into this, we tell you what Jarrett reported in his book for this week. And the big news this week, or at least the first thing that came up this week, was Jerry, Jeff, and the Panda Energy people met with In Demand. And one of the In Demand executives, a man by the name of Dan York, allegedly told Panda Energy that Jerry Jarrett was the only person in wrestling who could compete with WWE. I don't want to say that's necessarily a lie, but, nothing Jerry Jarrett has done has proven that he could really compete with Vince McMahon.
I mean, most of the time he's usually worked with Vince McMahon. I mean, was that essentially 93 to 97?
Yeah, pretty much. We get our weekly Vince Russo drama, bro, and unfortunately, Jerry Jarrett doesn't go into detail about this, but he said that Vince Russo had an idea to turn Ron Killings into a Ku Klux Klan character, and Jerry turned it down, and that led to an argument that lasted until 1:30 in the morning. Sadly, he didn't tell us when the argument began, but I would like to think that Vince Russo was so angry that he couldn't do his KKK character that it led to a 6-hour fight with Jerry Jarrett.
I mean, Black Klansman hasn't come out yet, so you couldn't be topical. So,
yeah. Wade Keller of the Pro Wrestling Torch reported that Panda Energy were coming to the shows and the TNA personnel were doing their best to impress the new investors. Somehow that made Jerry very upset. And he doesn't explain why it made him upset, just that it made him upset to hear that they're reporting that the TNA wrestlers and staff are trying to impress the new owners. I don't get it.
Isn't that just smart business?
Apparently not.
People, they're going to give you a lot of money.
Apparently not if you're Jerry Jarrett, because he thought, this was awful for them to report that.
Maybe he wants it on the down low, I guess.
Maybe. Who knows? But anyway, on to the show. And of course, it wouldn't be this show, it wouldn't be TNA if we're not starting with backstage brawling. And in this case, it's Jerry Lynn and Sonny Siaki. Nobody except for the cameraman and Goldilocks notices that they're fighting. Now,
until they start beating up security people.
Yes. Now, of course, Sonny Siaki then has to turn around and come right back out here for our opening match, as it is Sonny Siaki versus Amazing Red. Siaki selling the beating from Lynn, and it's notable he is not wearing his Elvis gear. So I don't know, what to say here, but he's not wearing his Elvis outfit. Just leather
pants.
Yes. Siaki was walking to the ring, and Red decided to get the match started early with a flip dive over the top rope. With Siaki down, Red runs down the apron and hits a shooting star press to the floor.
Mm-hmm.
But inside the ring, Siaki sends him flipping head over tail with a clothesline. And in the shadow, we see, of all people, Mortimer Plumtree is back. Formerly the manager of the Johnsons, watching from the distance. And this is his first appearance since the Johnsons essentially fired him way back when on episode 3.
I thought he showed up at like episode 8 or 9 when Ed Ferrara was still there scouting talent.
I don't remember that. Let's see. I'm still waiting for Ryan Shamrock to come back and collect her money. Red uses an infrared and a spinning kick to almost get the win, but Siaki hits with essentially a black hole slam and then a roll of the dice, which is called the money clip, and Siaki picks up the win. The match was all right.
Yeah.
Not as good as some of the other X Division matches we've seen open shows, but nothing bad. And I gave it a 4.5 out of 10.
I gave it a 6, but that's not the story of this match. Now, We need to preface something, and we preface it time and time again, but Arya watches the TNA Plus feed of these shows, and I watch the actual live shows. I downloaded the torrents many, many years ago.
Can't believe we would talk about torrents on this show. We were very up and up classy podcasting, Cyndi.
We haven't been classy since episode 1 of Something Else.
Well, that was about 3 co-hosts ago. But Jorge Estrada came out and said that tonight he and Jimmy Yang are going to take Sonny's Elvis suit and strip him down, including taking his blue suede shoes. They gasp.
Right. But that's not what I wanted to bring up. What I wanted to bring up is we talked about this before the show. And why we're watching different versions. You mentioned to me some dips in the third row. And you were watching the TNA Plus feed and you said, were these signs blurred in the live version? Because we had 3 people with signs, and normally when it comes to wrestling shows, there's a lot of stuff you can get away with. These 3 had signs that were blurred. And we could tell they were blurred because one of them had arrows pointing down to the people in the second row. And whatever was on top of those arrows was blurred out. So Arya asked me, is it like this on the live feed? Lo and behold, yes, it is. So this is something you couldn't get away with putting on a sign in 2002. So things that you could not get away with posting on a sign in 2002 had to have the hard S word, the hard F word, or something really, really obviously racist, or something really, really obviously homophobic.
I don't know, because they've have Bruce out here so the fans could chant homophobic things at him. So I don't think that would be it.
Well, it's hard to censor chants with their bad audio system.
Well, that's why we have the Fight Network here to sound edit everything 20 years later. But yeah, somehow they managed to blur out live shit here. So go figure. Backstage, Amazing Red is limping, and he's attacked by Ron the Truth Killings for some reason. Killings beat down Red while Goldilocks stood there and watched. Now, Ron the Truth Killings, after last week defeating X Division champion Jerry Lynn, this week will challenge Jerry Lynn for the X Division championship. And yeah.
In a lumberjack match.
Yes. And speaking of unnecessary gimmicks, Chris Harris and James Storm come out next to defend the World Tag Team Championship against Brian Lee and Ron Harris in a tables match. Now, in the interest of fairness, there is a tiny bit of sense being made here, since last week the finish saw Brian Lee and Ron Harris try to put Harris and Storm through a table, and they were stopped from doing so and were pinned in the process. So in some way that it did make a little bit of sense to have this be a tables match. Either way, despite this being a match with no disqualifications, only 2 men wrestled in the ring, and the other 2 would be nice enough to wait on the ring apron for a tag. Harris backdrops everyone over the top rope, including his partner. Storm gets caught by Harris and Lee, so Chris dives over the top rope onto the pile. Referee Rudy Charles allows a 2-on-1 beatdown and only steps in when James Storm tries to interfere and help his partner. They set up a table in the corner of the ring. Harris gives Harris a power slam, in this case with Ron giving it to Chris. If he would have done that 5 feet to the left, they would have won the championship, but he didn't, so they didn't. Storm gets the lukewarm hot tag, and a 4-way breaks out. Harris and Storm knock Ron to the outside with a pair of super kicks. Lee ends up on the apron and tries several times to put both men to a table, but Storm jumps off the back of Chris, slams into Brian Lee, and Lee goes through the table. After the match, Ron Harris beats down the champions and puts Chris Harris through a table. TNA security runs in, and Don Harris backs down his twin brother, and to show us for the first time tonight that Don Harris is the ultimate badass in this company.
Mm-hmm.
I have to make note that was not the last time that we find out what a badass this guy is.
By the way, did you note the promo package that aired before the match?
That crappy promo package? Yes, I did.
I noted that interesting promo package beforehand about the match last night that looked cheaply made in Windows Movie Maker.
Yeah, this that's pretty much, this keeps going for probably a year. Similarly poorly made video packages.
And yet, a year later, they have some of the best promo packages because they hire somebody away.
They hired what's his name from WWE?
Dave Sahadi, I guess.
Yeah, and he actually knew what the hell he was doing.
I will 10 for this match.
I gave 5.5. It's a fun little brawl, and this is step 1 on making Harris and Storm deserving champions, and not just 2 guys who are in the spot because they're local and work cheap. Because that really is the reputation of them right now is, you know, they're local guys who work cheap, and thus they're getting the belts. Earlier today, Goldilocks is interviewing Bruce. Bruce had pulled into a parking spot, and an old woman came up and yelled at him for taking her parking spot, and that woman was ticket taker Sarah Lee. who did not bring any baked goods with her.
A shame.
Yeah. Back to the front of the building where NWA champion Ron Killings is in the middle of the ring. He notes that he plans on winning the title and doing away with the X Division. Truth talks about the prejudice of having X Division Lumberjacks, wanting to know where his posse is. And that brings out BG James. And it's, once again, it's inside baseball. We got to talk about all the backstage political drama bullshit that no one knows or gives a fuck about. As BG James and Ron Killings, they were partners in WWE for like 2 months. And so we got to bring that up and talk about how, BG pulled Ron Killings up, and Ron Killings is like, no, bitch, I took the heat off you, and all that stupid horse shit that no one gives a fuck about. The only thing I noted, this was the first time that I recall Ron calling himself the suntanned Superman, which I think is a great line. But he calls BG his bitch. BG takes these as fighting words, and a brawl erupts. BG punches him in the head, so Truth walks away while BG starts talking about Demi Moore for reasons.
I don't know either. This was weird, and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm getting tired of all the inside baseball stuff. This would be a problem for TNA up until 2020.
Pretty much.
Because they finally stopped that crap during the pandemic.
Go figure. When you tape your shows weeks and weeks in advance, it's hard to reference all the modern day inside pro wrestling news of the day. And shockingly, that's when TNA got good. We then get a backstage segment with Goldilocks interviewing Brian Lawler. And if you know what the hell they're saying, you're better than me, because in the background of this pre-tape, because this is obviously being taped before the show starts, because you can hear Jeremy Borash hyping up the crowd and telling them what matches would be on the show tonight. Why didn't they retape this? Better yet, why didn't they tape it earlier in the fucking day?
I guess Lawler was late.
All I got out of this was Brian scream that whatever this is no one's business. Then, so from here we get AJ Styles and Low Key in a 2 out of 3 falls match. And I was like, holy shit, I forgot that good wrestling could be on this show. And they make note to say the winner gets a title match next week at the X Division title, and the loser goes to the bottom of the rankings. If you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell you. And Low Key wins the first fall. AJ wins the second fall. They go to the finish here. They block each other's big moves. AJ injures Low Key's knee by slamming it into the barricade. The finish was a little screwy here.
Yeah.
AJ rolls up Low Key, and I think he's supposed to pin him with his feet on the ropes, but they were a little too far away. So they fucked it up there, but then AJ just gives him the Styles Clash to get what ended up being a clean victory, even though it wasn't supposed to be a clean victory.
Go figure.
Yeah. I thought it was a really good match, but it's not as jaw-droppingly exciting as some of the other matches we've seen them have. So this won't get the love that some of the other matches do. I gave it an 8 out of 10.
I gave it an 8 as well. It was a breath of fresh air on the show.
Yes. For 20 minutes, I was reminded that good wrestling exists.
Mm-hmm.
Backstage, Goldilocks is with Jeff Jarrett, who keeps being taken away from his goal of being NWA champion. Jarrett says Goldilocks will be selling Time Life CDs at 4 a.m. on some obscure cable station, but that
Game
he
Show
will
Network.
Well, you see, it's funny that somebody from TNA is talking about obscure cable stations, since I thought they were having their main mission in life was to tell us about channels that you didn't know existed there for a while.
Yeah, I mean, the Outdoor Channel, Pursuit Channel, Destination
That's
America,
the TV Guide channel.
oh, Pop.
Yes.
Uh,
Well,
and now they're on Access.
yes. Formerly HDNet. Well, from here we get Elix Skipper and Brian Lawler versus Scott Hall and Sean Waltman.
I think they realized that having Six Pac versus Brian Lawler would be a disaster.
I don't know if it would have been a disaster, so to speak, but I think it was also a way to just get more names on the show, and you have Scott Hall now in the match as well. Lawler suddenly realized during the entrance that April's skirt is quite short, so he put his ring jacket on her, which, by the way, is not even long enough to reach the bottom of her skirt, so whatever. Tenay talks about how Hall and Waltman want to be the NWA Tag Team Champions, so they came to the right place. It is true that if you want to be the NWA Tag Team Champions, you should be in the promotion where those titles are defended.
I mean, you don't know. They could be defended on independents across the country someday.
Sure, why not?
I mean, it's not like TNA would ever have footage of that.
No, that would be too much here, So not mentioned, by the way, was 10 weeks ago, Brian Lawler and Scott Hall were partners, and Lawler turned on him. But Lawler spent the match being preoccupied with making sure April doesn't move from where he tells her to stand. So he grabs a chair and shows her where to sit. Later on in the match, Lawler tells her off, so Don West gets up from the table to console her, which pisses off Brian Lawler. You'd think Don West would learn by now to mind his own fucking business.
Don West can't help it. He's a gentleman.
Yes. Sean Waltman tags in and puts Skipper and Lawler through the motions. He downs Skipper with an X Factor, but only gets a 2 count. He goes for the Bronco Buster, but Skipper moves out of the way. Lawler starts attacking Scott Hall, while behind him, Waltman pins Skipper with an X Factor as Skipper dives off the top rope, which, it's been done many times before, but I still think it's a cool finish. Waltman actually done that a few times with D'Lo Brown back in the day.
Countering the lowdown.
Yes. So, yep. After the match, Jeff Jarrett runs down and drops both Waltman and Hall with a stroke. Skipper and Lawler join in on the beatdown momentarily before the baddest man on the planet, Don Harris, runs in to break it up. Where's Vince McMahon to scream, the baddest man on the planet, Don Harris?
Wow.
I know what we said last week about Sean Waltman is Sean Waltman's got his working boots on. Love him or hate him, especially in 2002, but he is really trying here. And I think he's motivated to be 1998 Sean Waltman and not 2001 Sean Waltman. But I gave this match a 5.5 out of 10.
I gave it a 5 as well.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's still the Vince Russo soap opera garbage that's dragging this down. Because, we can't just have a good wrestling match. We have to have this bullshit going on at the same time. Speaking of Vince Russo, up next we had a very Vince Russo promo where AJ Styles was bumping and grinding on Goldilocks and then said he's the greatest sports entertainer in the world. Because, you can't be a professional wrestler. You're a sports entertainer.
This was weird, if I could say that.
No, you're not allowed to call it weird. I mean, go ahead.
Screw you. I'm going to call it weird. It looks like AJ switched personalities with the Hot Shots. Like, am I cocky? Yeah. Am I a loudmouth? Duh. And then he bets about this idea. It says has this vision of something hanging over the top of the ring, and we have to get something to get it out of the ring. And Goldilocks was like, "You mean a ladder match?" AJ was like, "Well, that's a brilliant idea. That's what I'm gonna do." Slaps her ass and moves on. Yeah. I think my quip about switching personalities with the Hot Shots makes sense.
I wonder if he's married yet to his wife. You know.
Look at the tattoo. It's probably not.
Oh well. Kid Cash versus Jorge Estrada earlier tonight.
No.
Yes.
You're forgetting something.
I am not. AJ calls himself the greatest sports entertainer in the world, and the next thing is Kid Cash versus Jorge Estrada.
You're watching the TNA Plus feed?
Yes.
Oh boy.
What did they edit off?
Bruce.
I can't say I'm sad that they edited off a segment with Bruce. What did I miss with Bruce?
So you know the signs that we talked about earlier?
Yes.
Well, 2 of them became unblurred.
What did they say?
Bruce, Miss TNA Bruce is my mom.
Okay.
And I forget what the other one was, but I think what also probably got it cut from TNA Plus was some of Tanae's commentary over this, which could be seen as not PC right now.
What exactly was on this random ass segment?
Tanae said that Bruce's gender ID might be a little screwy.
Okay.
But the main thing was running down the audience, and the ticket lady comes out with a broom and wants a piece of him after what happened earlier. Because during the incident in the parking lot, Sarah Lee gave him what for. Said, You'll look a lot better when I shove this umbrella up your ass. And just slaps him. So Sarah wants a shot at Bruce. She's got her broom, which she whacked many a dup with. If you remember that.
Of course, how could I forget?
Oh, not only whacked many a dup, but Ed Ferrara sweeping him out of the company.
I mean, she hit somebody with a broom. They're not in the company anymore.
Yep. So Don West and Borash has the contract. Don West is hyping it up.
So we're gonna have Bruce versus an old lady.
Nope. The baddest man in TNA, according to Arya, Don Harris, puts the kibosh on it.
Of course.
I guess we found the one line that TNA won't cross. Bruce beating up old women.
Or old women beating up Bruce.
No, they would actually air that on TV. But could you imagine Sarah Lee actually pulling it off and becoming Miss TNA?
I mean, at least it would end the stupid angle.
About that. This is the end of the angle.
Are we done with Bruce finally?
We're done with him challenging people.
Oh, wonderful. So we're still getting more Bruce?
We have Bruce for a few more weeks.
Oh.
But
Wonderful.
It's interesting how he's being used. One of my T's confused? You won't be. Find out next week on Soap. And speaking of Soap, Kid Cash versus Jorge Estrada.
Back to what I was previously talking about. Earlier tonight, Jorge vowed to take Sonny's Elvis suit, so he decided the best way to do this was to wrestle Kid Cash, apparently. The two of them exchanged moves while I'm distracted by Don West off to the side, taking up his headset and talking with the producer. Mortimer Plumtree is back again, and he's standing on the ramp watching the match as Estrada knocks Cash out of the ring and then dives over the top rope, but comes up short, falling at Cash's feet, but Cash sells it anyway. Cash realized just how dumb that was, so he got up and did a double springboard flip dive to Estrada on the floor. Jorge goes to the top rope, but Cash shoves the ref into the ropes and then hits a Hurricanrana for a 2 count. We just want to say that used to be a disqualification. Cash goes for a Hurricanrana, but Estrada catches him, drops him with a powerbomb, and then wins with a springboard twisting moonsault to Cash's crotch, called the TCB, for the win. Estrada needs a lot of work, especially if they're going to push him as a single.
4 out of 10.
2.5 out of 10.
In our rankings, that's about right.
Yeah. After the match, Jorge calls out Sonny Siaki. Siaki says he never wanted everything to go down like this, saying he has respect for Jorge and Jimmy. Sonny says Jorge can have his Elvis jumpsuit. So we got a video from earlier today where he throws the jumpsuit into a burning barrel. And Jorge treated this as if his children just died. I would like to point out that Siaki dragged Goldilocks with him to burn it, and then Goldie didn't bother to tell anybody about it.
I think Sonny threatened her.
Because, he's Sonny Siaki.
Now Sonny Siaki is truly Sonny Siaki. Sonny Siaki only cares about Sonny Siaki. And Sonny Siaki has left the building.
Hells yeah. Well, then we get TNA X Division champion Jeremy Lynn versus Ron the Truth Killings in a lumberjack.
Wait, Jeremy
match.
Lynn?
Yes.
You mean before he played for the Knicks and we had Lynn Sanity, he wrestled in TNA?
Yes, we did. He got off. he got off of his friend's couch and wrestled Ron Killings for the X Division title here. The Lumberjacks for this match. Now, we've all seen Lumberjack matches. There's usually 10 to 15 guys outside the ring. Sometimes more. Like there was that Diesel Sid match where they had 30 Lumberjacks, which was just an excuse to get a whole bunch of people a payday on that show.
And Mandar.
Yes, who apparently is not a people. But so here is the full list of Lumberjacks for this match. Amazing Red, Kid Cash, Low Key, and Jorge Estrada, who quickly got over the suit being burned, by the way. So yes, 4 Lumberjacks. And I noted for the second week in a row, Jeremy Borash needs to learn what defending champion means, as he announces both men as the defending champion, even though Jerry Lynn's the only person defending his title. I know this is Jerry Lynn versus Ron Killings, and we saw them wrestle last week, and we know it's going to be more of a mat-based match, but it's weird having a lumberjack match for the X Division title, since theoretically that means a lot less flipping and flying around.
But you have 2 people who are malleable and can work various styles. The thing about not wanting to work a certain style for this match is Ron Killings, because what Ron Killings, as we talked about earlier, what Ron Killings is trying to do is squash the X Division, going with a more mat-based style than a high-flying style, or power style than a high-flying style.
Yes. So they do just enough to, give us the whatchamacallit, the lumberjack gimmick. Shoes keeps rolling to the outside. He's being rolled right back in. AJ Styles comes out at one point and sets a ladder up in the entryway because apparently he thinks he's low key from last month. Killings almost wins the title with a running power slam. Truth goes for her Karana, but Lynn drops him with a sit-out powerbomb for a 2 count. Truth kicks him in the dick, so Estrada and Red jump on the apron to complain. Low key, then, of all people, punches Killings, and then Jerry Lynn hits a TKO to pin the World Heavyweight Champion. Now, I will say this was a 5-on-1 handicap match where the baby faces had the advantage. But still, at least Jerry Lynn at the end of the day got the win. And even though we had the heel world champion fighting back from underneath, I gave this a 5.0 out of 10.
What did I give this? I gave it a 7. I liked it. Yes. So in our rankings, so pretty much the same. Yeah. Don West hype time.
Okay. So next week, right here, you're going to have Jerry Lynn. And he's going to wrestle AJ Styles in a ladder match right here on TV. Plus, you just saw Ron Killings, and he said he was going to the X Division, but Low Key stopped him. What's Ron Killings going to do to Low Key next week? Find out. Plus, you saw Sonny Siaki. He burned the Elvis suit. But now, what's he possibly going to do next? Right here, next week, on the show. Don't miss it. God, my throat just got all dry doing my Don West impression.
Better you than me this time around.
Talk about the main event while I drink some drink.
Okay, it is Jeff Jarrett versus BG James. This is the match they've been hyping up for the past couple of weeks with the Masked Bullet, who originally was Scarred Armstrong. And then when we came back from hiatus, the Masked Bullet gained 30 pounds and his voice went down about 3 octaves. So he unmasked and it's BG James. So we have a typical mid-90s WWF style match, which is nothing bad, just nothing that'll blow your mind. I mean, if you watched weekly WWF TV, this is the type of match you'd get from 2 mid-carders.
See, so I noted that this is the start of every Jeff Jarrett main event match for the next 4 years.
That is true.
Like, legitimately, like, if you've seen one Jeff Jarrett main event match, you've seen all of them. So if you like it, then you'll love the next 4 years of TNA. If you don't like it, you'll hate the next 4 years of TNA.
There are things that you can count on in a Jeff Jarrett main event match. Will he do a low blow to get the advantage? Check. Will there be a ref bump? Oddly enough, not this time.
What?
Will there be distractions galore? Oh, you bet your bottom dollar there's distractions galore.
Will there be crowd? Will there be crowd brawling? Damn right there is.
Oh yeah.
Hell, last week he had a cage match and managed to have crowd brawling. So if you can brawl in the crowd during a cage match, you can brawl in the crowd during any type of match.
You mean 2 weeks ago?
No, last week was. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
It's not like we're recording these things in advance on the same day like TNA does with shows, right?
Never.
No.
We're recording this Wednesday morning at midnight Eastern Standard Time.
Yes, because after this, I got to go to bed because I got work in the morning.
And you would think I would already be asleep since I got to wake up at 6 a.m. to go to work.
Right, but you kind of have insomnia and wanted to do this podcast.
Obviously.
Yep.
Anyway. By the way, I noted that much like a really bad podcast host and their co-host, BG and JB talk over each other during the intro of the match.
It's clear that they didn't work things out beforehand.
Correct.
Anyways, distractions galore. Lawler comes out, tries to hold up BG, but Jarrett nails Brian Lawler. Elix Skipper comes out for some odd reason, I thought. Then when BG did his finish, Lawler and Skipper jump BG James, and we actually have a disqualification.
The first DQ in TNA history.
So match gets thrown out. They beat up BG. Six and Scott Hall show up to even the odds, and they do. But then Truth shows up and lays out BG James and then Scott Hall the belt.
And the show ends with the heels standing victoriously at the end.
Jarrett grabs the belt, lays out Six. Truth gets his belt back. They stomp on the wrestlers a little bit longer, and the Cosmic Ballet fades to black. And the show is mercifully over. This was a letdown from last week.
Funny enough, I like this more than last week.
That's because you didn't have to suffer through a Bruce segment.
I guess I did see him with Sarah Lee the first time, but at least I didn't get the second segment. So by the way, I gave the main event a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, that's what I gave it.
So average match quality of 5.14. Overall enjoyment, I gave it a 6.5 out of 10 because even though I can live without Don Harris needing to come out and be the baddest man on the planet multiple times on the show, I enjoyed it. And future build, I gave it a 9 just because it's hard to not get excited over watching AJ Styles versus Jerry Lynn, which is what we're theoretically going to have next week.
I'll agree with you there. I also want to say that my overall enjoyment of the show was about a 4. Bruce killed it. Also, I wasn't a big fan of Kid Cash versus Jorge Estrada. The tag match with Skipper and Lawler and Hall and Six Pack was just a lot of in this show. But the build, is strong. You have what could set up a possible 8-man tag with Six, Hall, BG, and a mystery partner versus Truth, Jarrett, Skipper, and Brian Lawler. Or you could have a 6-man and they tell Skipper to go play with the X Division guys. Then you have what's going to happen because of Jorge Estrada and Sonny Siaki. So there's a lot of build that happened on this show, which is good, but
So
I just wasn't that overly impressed with this week.
So overall rating for me anyway, a 6.88.
I gave it a 4.5.
So we're 14 down. We have 96 more of these to go. Because it's 110 of these fucking shows.
And we're going to enter a new month of October. What surprises are going to be in store for this company? Who will Mortimer Punchy manage? Who will become the new X Division champion? Will we finally be rid of Bruce once and for all?
Wait, are you telling me that Jerry Lynn doesn't hold on to the title for the next 22 years?
Confused? You won't be. Next week on Something Else.
All right. So, yeah, that's going to do it for our fine little program here. Anything else you want to say to our awesome listening audience before we bid them adieu?
I like red beans and Tabasco sauce.
Wow, red beans and Tabasco sauce. Oh.
Sorry, I just need to quote Hawk Harrelson there for a second, because sometimes his commentary is really weird and enjoyable in a perverse way. He doesn't do baseball commentary anymore. He used to commentate the White Sox. He would tell people the early 90s were a different era than the early 90s.
That sounds like somebody to listen to.
And the count is full. Sacks packed with seamen, the Mariners. That is an actual quote from Hawk Harrelson, and I have audio proof.
I will take your word for it.
It was a White Sox Mariners game, and I watched it on WGN America back in the day.
All right, then. Well, that's going to do it for this week's show. I want to thank everyone for listening. Hope you all enjoyed it. Hey, it's less than an hour, so you can't say we went longer than the show lasts. But thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you again in 7 days.